The nephew of Tiberius was a famous general. He was in line to be the next emperor. He had a wife and 6 children, 3 boys, and then he had 3 girls. One time when he was on a military campaign, his wife made a miniature military outfit for their youngest son when he was about 3 years old. With the outfit, she also made these military boots that was just his size. Soldiers were taken by that, and they nicknamed the boy Little Boot. Where in Latin, that is pronounced Caligula. Well, the whole family was overturned when the famous general was assassinated, and his wife was sent into exile. The 2 older boys were condemned of state crimes and were executed. Caligula, Little Boot, was sent to live with Tiberius's mother. Years later, Tiberius needed an heir. Almost all of his heirs were gone. They had been systematically killed off. There were really only 2 left. One was the general's younger brother, Claudius, but he was strange. There was just some odd things about him, and the emperor knew that he couldn't be the heir. So he took the general's youngest son, Caligula, and made him his heir. He took him to his island resort, Capri, to be a part of his immoral environment there, perverted. In time, Tiberius was amazed how much Caligula was getting in on it and was enjoying it. He just laughed. He says, "I am nurturing a viper for the Roman people." On the island, there was a man who was Caligula's tutor. And even though there was a big difference in age, they became good friends. And that's why he was on the island. His name was Agrippa, Herod Agrippa. He was the grandson of Herod the Great. As a child, he had been taken out of Judea and sent to Rome because, well, his grandfather was senile and was killing off some of his sons, including the child's father. Tiberius made sure that the young man had a good education. While a child, he became friends with Claudius, that younger brother of the general. He also became a friend with the emperor's son. As years went by and they got older, started having parties and things like that, well, the son and the nephew, they had royal funds to support their lifestyle, but Agrippa didn't. But he wanted to keep up, and so he went into debt, and deeper in debt, and deeper, a massive amount of debt, until finally he had to run away from Rome to get away from his debtors. Went back to Judea, where he married his cousin. And the 2 of them lived in a very modest lifestyle, far from the splendor of the imperial palace. And with his debts and the lack of splendor, he just got more and more depressed. Finally, Agrippa tried to commit suicide. Well, his wife, to keep it from happening, talked to their uncle, the Herod of Galilee, Antipas. Herod agreed. Oh, by the way, that's the Herod that killed John the Baptist. Well, he agreed to take care of his nephew's debts, and even offered him a job up in Galilee. Well, that didn't last very long. The 2 of them got in an argument, and then Agrippa started going here and going there and getting in trouble wherever he went and getting deeper in debt again until finally they went down to Alexandria, Egypt. There he approached a wealthy Jewish banker about loaning him some money so he could get back to Rome and pay his debts. The banker was inclined to help. He said, I'm not going to give the money to you. I'm not sure that you can handle it. But I'll give the money to your wife. He was impressed how much she loved her husband and other good qualities. Well, she took the money, paid off his debts, got both of them a passage back to Rome. Tiberius took care of him there, gave him a job. He became a tutor for the emperor's grandson and also a tutor for his heir, Caligula. And as I said before, even though there was a difference in age, the two of them became very good friends. And that's why Agrippa was on Capri. Well, during one of those wild parties, Agrippa got drunk and just started to mouth off a little bit. He finally told his friends that, I hope the emperor doesn't take too long in dying so you can become the next emperor. Well, word got back to Tiberius and he was furious. He put Agrippa into chains and threw him in the dungeon to await execution. While he was there, he looked out his cell window and he saw an owl. He believed it was a good omen, that he would not die because of this situation. But he also believed that if he saw that owl later on in life, that he would die. Well, sure enough, Tiberius died, and the new emperor, his friend, released him from prison. Matter of fact, gave him a gold chain that was as heavy as the iron chains that held him in prison. He also gave him a kingdom that had just come available, one that was northeast of Galilee. While he was there, Galilee became available because Antipas, the Herod there, fell into disfavor and he was exiled. So now Agrippa had two kingdoms to himself. Well, these two men, friends, one was emperor, one was a king. Both of them ruled well at the beginning. Even though they both came from very sordid backgrounds, they ruled well for a while. But then their ways divided and went in different directions. Caligula, the people were thrilled that he was their emperor. They were thrilled to be done with Tiberius and overjoyed that the son of their favorite general was now ruling over them. And he did, it was said that this was a blissful time. He did some wonderful things for the people to make their lives easier. And this lasted for 7 months. At that time, Caligula got sick. He was deathly sick. They thought he was going to die. People were devastated. They literally cried out in the streets. All the senators prayed to their various gods to spare him. Some of the senators even said, take my life instead of his. My life for his. Well, Tiberius did get well. But he was a changed man. He was no longer that wonderful emperor that everyone loved. He was much more dark, like he had been back at Capri. He heard that the senators, what they had prayed, so he called those in that had prayed that, and he thanked them for their prayers, but that your life for mine. Well, I'm alive. Therefore, I expect you to commit suicide. Well, the emperor had a special bodyguards. They were the elite unit of the of the military called the Praetorian Guard. And they made sure that the emperor was safe and also that he got his way. So they realized he wasn't kidding, so one by one they committed suicide. Imagine a 25-year-old immature man who had ultimate power. He could do anything he wanted to, and no one could do a thing about it. That's what you have in Caligula. He did do just anything he thought of. He enjoyed killing people, seeing them die slowly. He even organized killing parties. People could come together and they would bring someone and they just agonizingly just kill the person slowly. In fact, sometimes he would take a child and make his parents join the crowd. And while they slowly killed the child, the parents had to smile and even cheer him on, or else they would be killed as well. He often took the wives of other men to have his way with them. One time he was in a crowd, and he started laughing real loud, and people said, well, what's so funny? He said, well, I just realized that I could say that all of you are to have your throat slit, and there's nothing you could do about it. One time he went to a wedding. In the middle of the ceremony, he got up and took the bride off to a side room and did what he wanted there. Nothing that either of them could say about it. They couldn't even complain. He took some of the senators and had them run along next to his chariot for miles on end. Nothing they could do about that. He thought it'd be funny to make his horse a state official, and did. But he thought it would be more funny if he took his uncle, Claudius, and made him a state official. Claudius had no ambition to be a part of politics, but he had no choice. When he got him there, he put him on stage and had him do silly things to a people who already thought that he was a fool. No, Caligula got married quite a few times. Sometimes just for one night, sometimes just for a couple of weeks. But his most famous wedding was when he married his sister. Lived with her for quite a while until she finally died, and then made her a goddess and required that other people would worship her. He finally met a woman that he wanted to keep, though, and she was as immoral and wild as he was. Sometimes he displayed her nude in front of the troops or friends. He kidded her by saying that, I could kill you anytime I wanted. I could torture you and then kill you anytime I wanted to. And that was how he kidded her. She bore him a daughter, and Caligula named the daughter after his sister wife that had died. Caligula heard that a soothsayer of Tiberius years before, when he heard that Caligula was going to become the next emperor, he said, that's impossible. That's as impossible as having him ride a chariot across the Bay of Bali, which is about 3 miles long. So he took a whole group of ships, put them side by side, going across the entire 3 miles. Men to put planks of wood across the ships, and then they posted guards along the way. He then rode his chariot back and forth across the bay. So he thought it'd be especially funny to get as close to those guards as possible. They were in full armor, and he would knock them off under the water, and of course they would just sink to the bottom. He took so many ships, cargo ships, that was supposed to bring grain from Egypt, so much that there became a grain shortage in Rome. He was in an arena one time where they were feeding prisoners to wild animals, and they ran out of prisoners. He became bored, so he told the guard to take a section of the audience and put them down in the arena so they could be consumed by the wild animals. He started having sex with his other two sisters. When he finally got tired of that, he started prostituting them out to other men. They hated him so much that they joined a conspiracy to assassinate him. Unfortunately, he found out about it, had the conspirators executed. Then he took his two sisters and sent them into exile. One of them was Agrippina. She had a son, and she wasn't allowed to take her son with her. That broke her heart, to be separated from her son. His name was Nero. While all this was going on, Agrippa was really falling in love with his kingdom, with the people of his kingdom, and they were falling in love with him. He even started to learn about Jewish ways. He had left there when he was a child, so didn't know much about it, and he started learning more about it and accepting that. And then finally there was an issue that arose that came between him and his friend. Caligula came out one day and declared that he was a god. In fact, he was the sun god. So he put statues all across Rome so that people could worship him there. Then he had an idea that he would put his statue in all the temples across the entire empire, which included the temple in Jerusalem. The Jewish people were outraged. This went against everything they believed. This would desecrate their temple. Agrippa saw that this was a huge problem and something that needed to be taken care of, and taken care of quickly. He thought about it, considered the options, and finally took his life in his own hands and went and stood before his friend, the emperor. To the amazement of everybody, Caligula agreed and exempted the Jerusalem temple. As you can imagine, the Jewish people all across the empire now loved Agrippa more than ever. Sometime later, Caligula changed his mind and decided to put his statue in the temple in Jerusalem, but before he could, he was assassinated. It happened during an intermission of some public games and drama. During the intermission, he took his guards around him and he went down in the basement to talk to the drama troupe that was there. When the guards got him down there, they surrounded him, pulled out their swords and daggers, and kept stabbing him. As he lay dead, he had over 30 stab marks all across his body. They then tossed him into a shallow grave. The Senate was thrilled. They wanted to eliminate his name from Roman history. He was considered in history, he was considered the maddest emperor who ever ruled. They went throughout Rome and took out all of his statues. Even when his name was in marble, they would etch it out, destroyed any mention of him. Then they decided this would be a good time to stop this Roman Empire and go back to the Roman Republic. They were tired of all these emperors. So the first thing to do, they had to kill all the heirs. So they went to his house and they killed his wife and his daughter. Then they started looking for the only other heir that was out there, and that was Uncle Claudius. Well, Claudius saw this coming. So he was in the palace at the time, so he hid behind some thick curtains, and they couldn't find him. He was worried for his life. Agrippa, who had been a childhood friend, knew all the hiding places in the palace. So he took a guard and went, and the guard pulled back the curtain, and there was Claudius. Agrippa made sure that he was taken to a safe place in the guard's camp until the situation could be taken care of. Claudius and Agrippa, two interesting people. But I'll tell you more about them in the next story.